Hey there Dev Squad, Virtus here and welcome back to my Unreal Engine 4 Mech Combat tutorial series. Within today's video, we're going to be taking a look at how we can set up the upgrade abilities for the special attacks. So having said that, if we go ahead and jump into our shop menu, at the moment we have got all of the functionality for everything working apart from these special attacks. When they press plus, this is going to increase the amount of damage they will be able to do with the leap ability, helicopter ability, and also their whirlwind ability. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into Unreal Engine and make this happen. So the first thing that we want to do is open up our third person character. Now the reason why I'm doing this is simply because I want to set up a variable for the amount of damage that they're going to be dealing with this new ability, and also a variable with the cost of upgrading that ability as well. And then what we're going to be doing is using a little bit of blueprint functionality to have all of this being displayed on the screen and change these variables around depending on whenever they press that button. So having said that, we are going to create three variables to start with. The first one is going to be called leap damage, and then we're going to give this variable type the type float. And then what we're going to be doing is setting the default value to 0.5. And then once we've done this, all we're going to be doing is creating the damage ability variables for each of those attacks. So we're going to have our leap, we're going to have our whirlwind damage, and then we're going to set the default value to that to 0.5 for now. Now you guys can play around with these values to change them to deal more damage with whirlwind or less damage with whirlwind, more with leap, and so on and so forth. It's entirely up to you, but this 0.5 is just there for testing purposes. So what you should have is three different variables declaring how much damage is going to be taken when you do it. What we also need to have is three more variables which are going to be containing the cost of upgrading this. So we're going to do leap damage cost, and this one is actually going to be an integer. So the default value for this is how much you want it to cost to actually upgrade this. So you can set it to 5, which is going to be what we're working with for now. The next one is going to be our whirlwind damage cost. And then with this, we're going to go ahead and set the default value to this to 5 as well. So 0.5 or 5 rather, just 5. And then what we're going to do is create another variable, and we're going to give this the name helicopter damage cost. And then once we've done this, what we're going to do is simply compile this, set the default value to 5, and then we're good to go in terms of variables. So having said that, what we're going to do is compile this, close it up, and we can start working on the functionality. So what we have to do first of all is actually go into our enemy AI scripts, look in them for all of the damage stuff where we're doing the whirlwind attack, the default attack, and the leap attack and all of that. And inside of here, you don't want to be referencing hard values like I have done here. So 0.2 for whirlwind, 0.3 for helicopter. We want to use those variables we created earlier. So as third person character, we are going to get our whirlwind damage. So get whirlwind, and then get the damage for that, and just do the same thing, getting a reference to those three variables we created. So get leap damage, and you also want to get helicopter damage as well. And then we're just going to be hooking these up into the corresponding nodes. So for our helicopter attack, you want to replace 0.3 with that variable. Our leap attack, you want to replace 0.5 with that variable, and then with the whirlwind you're going to be hooking it up just like that as well. Now what you are going to have to do, because you've got two different enemies, you are just going to have to copy that code and put it into the other one as well. So if you've got 5 enemies, you want to put this code into each of them. So having said that, in here we're going to copy and paste our references to leap damage, whirlwind damage, and also our helicopter, and we're going to hook them up just like that. Or you can just manually recreate them again, it's entirely up to you. For our targets, we are going to be setting this to the third person character because that is where all of this information is being stored. If we go ahead and hit compile, we should have no errors and it's going to run just the way that we want it to. So with that having been said, what we can now go ahead and do is open up our shop menu and start working on the functionality to actually increase these values. So the first thing that we're going to do is work on these pieces of text, getting them to display the cost of making this upgrade. So with our leap damage, what we're going to do is create a text content binding, and inside of here, what we're going to do is simply cast to third person character. Inside of third person character, we are going to get leap damage cost. And then we're going to hook this up into the return value. Object wildcard is going to be get player character. And what we're going to do with all of this code is just copy it, because we can reuse that for each of these. So go ahead and create a binding for the helicopter damage cost. And then we're going to move this along and we're going to paste it in just like this. So put it in there, and then instead of getting the leap damage cost, what we're going to do is simply get the helicopter, or whichever ability this was, which is helicopter. So as third person character, get helicopter damage cost, put it into v2 text, put it into the return node, and you're good to go. And then once we've done this, what we're going to be doing is copying this again, going to our third piece of text, creating a binding for this, and then we're just going to paste it in just like that. Once we've done this, hook it up so it all runs, and then instead of the helicopter damage cost, this one is get whirlwind damage cost. And then with this, we're just going to put it into the to text. So if we go ahead and compile this now, hit play and possess, we are actually going to be able to see these values being displayed on the screen. So it should just say 5 being the cost of upgrading this. And I am happy with that. So what we need to do now is actually get the current damage displayed on the screen, and also the new amount of damage if they were to upgrade this. So what we're going to do is add in 3 text blocks, 1, 2, and 3. And what you want to do with all 3 of these is anchor them to the center of your screen so that you can actually have them in the same position as everything else. So just go through and set that anchor point to the middle of the screen. Once we've done this, we are then going to be creating a binding for each of these. So with the first one, create a binding, and because the first one is our leap damage, all we're going to do is cast to the third person character. And as third person character, we are going to get the leap damage, and then we're going to put this into the return value. Now before we do that, we are simply going to do float multiplied by float to give this a higher number. So we're going to multiply it by 100, so instead of saying 0.5, it is going to say a higher number instead. Object wildcard is going to be get player character. And what you also want to do in here before you actually jump in is make sure it's all connected, so it's actually going to multiply it and then use that value. So your connection should look like this. Hit compile, hit play, and what you should have when you possess and run up into that bench is it's going to say your current damage is 50. So now all we've got to do is just go through and do that exact same thing for each of the other 2 damage types. So we are going to take that text that we've got here, or the code rather, and we are going to be copying all of this and just changing out the references. So create a content binding for your helicopter damage, and then just paste this in here like that. And then we're just going to hook up all of this. And as third person character instead of leap damage, we are going to get our helicopter damage instead and hook it up to your multiplication node. That's good to go. Do the same thing for our whirlwind as well. So create a binding, and then inside of here we're just going to paste it in just like that. And then once we pasted it in, all we're doing is changing the reference from leap damage to get whirlwind damage instead. And now if we go ahead and hit compile, jump in and press play, what we're going to be having is it displaying on the screen like this. So it's going to show the damage for each of those. That is the current damage done. What we now need to move on to is showing the new amount of damage if they were to upgrade this. And the new amount of damage is just going to be 20% more, and that's really easy to do. So having said that, all we're going to do is create 3 new pieces of text. And then with all of these, you want to make sure that these are anchored onto the screen. So anchor them to the center, just like that. And then once we've done with this, what we're going to be doing is creating those bindings. And now inside of here, what we're going to be using is the same code as before. So you can notice what I've done here is I've multiplied it by 100, but what I'm actually going to be doing is multiplying it by 120, so that's going to give us the value plus 20%. So if I go ahead and play this, if I go ahead and hit compile, you are going to be able to see that. So it's going to show us our current damage and the new damage. So if you was to upgrade this, it would go from 50 to 60, and hopefully you guys can start to see how a simple little bit of maths can actually upgrade this. So having said that, we are going to go to our graph, and then we're going to go to our design view, and we're going to just simply make this next piece. Now instead of having to add that times 120 each time, we're going to take this code, we're going to go into the new damage, and we are going to create the binding. Inside of here, we're going to remove that, paste it in, and all we're doing is just changing the reference. So get helicopter damage, and we're just going to place it in just like that. Once we've done that, we're going to go into the design view and create that last content binding of ours. Inside of here, same code as before, and all we're doing is simply just changing that reference. Leap damage to get whirlwind damage, which was our last one. So having said that, if we now go ahead and hit compile, close this up and hit play, what is going to happen is it's going to show the new damage for each of these. Now what you will notice is the alignment of the text is a little bit out, so go ahead and straighten this up. What we're going to do now is simply move on to adding in the functionality, so when they click it, if they have enough of these fragments, then we are going to tell it to increase that damage going forwards. So inside of our shop menu, we're going to go to our leap damage button. With this button, we're going to be creating an on-clicked event. With this on-clicked event, first and foremost, we are going to be casting to the third person character, because this is where all of our information is. From here, we're then going to be running a branch check to see whether or not they have enough time fragments. So from our branch, the condition is going to be integer greater than or equals to. And then with this, as third person character, we're going to get our time fragments, which is what we're checking they've got enough of. And then we also need to get our leap upgrade cost. And then we're going to put this into our B. Object wildcard is going to be get player character, and that bit there is good. And if they have got enough, then what we're going to be doing is setting our new damage for this leap damage to be itself times 1.2. So it's going to add that 20% that I talked about earlier. So set leap damage, and then with this into our true, and then the leap damage is going to be float multiplied by float. Once we've done this, as third person character, get our leap damage, and we are going to feed it directly into this multiplication node. And then with that, we're just going to multiply this by 1.2. With that being done, what we now need to do is take away those fragments from the player. That is the cost. So set time fragments, and then time fragments, what we're going to be doing is simply setting this to the current value minus the cost. So integer minus integer, time fragments minus the cost over here. And then lastly, all we're going to be doing is increasing the cost, so it costs more to upgrade it each time. So the last one we're going to be doing is set leap damage cost. And with this, we're going to be taking the current value and multiplying it by 2. So do integer plus, or integer multiplied by integer, and then we're simply going to get the cost of upgrading it and multiplying it by 2, just like that. So if we go ahead and compile this, we can test this, and this will work. So hit play, possess, go ahead and pick up enough of these fragments to make that upgrade. So as you can see here, I've now got 7, run up to it, and you can see it's going to add 60 to our damage because that is the new amount. Hit that and it's now gone up, so the current damage has gone up from 50 to 60, and also the cost of doing this has also gone up. And if I was to run up to one of these, whack them with my leap ability, so if I press that and I actually need to hit them as well, it is going to hit them and kill them with 2 shots because that's all it needs now. So all we're going to do now is open up our shop menu, and we're pretty much just going to copy that same code for each of those 3 buttons, changing out the references. So helicopter damage, we're going to create a on-clicked event for that. What we're also going to be doing is creating an on-clicked event for the whirlwind damage as well. So create that, and then we're going to move this down. We're going to copy every single piece of code for that first ability. And we are just going to place it in there and there for each of those buttons. So once we've done this, what we're going to do is simply changing out the reference values so it's working with the correct information, the correct data. Go to your design view, the second one is helicopter damage. So go through this, instead of leap damage cost, all we're going to be doing is getting our helicopter damage cost. Moving on from there, this bit here where it's got leap damage, we're going to be changing this to get helicopter damage, and then we're going to put this into our A. And then at the very end here, instead of set leap damage cost, we are going to set helicopter damage cost. So go ahead and do that, and what you should have should look exactly like this. With our X into here, put this into our helicopter damage cost, and that is going to work. Now all we're going to do is copy that one more time and put it into this last button here for upgrading the whirlwind ability. So leap damage cost over here, we're going to get that, and we are going to get a reference to whirlwind damage cost instead. And then instead of leap damage here, we are going to get whirlwind damage and multiply that by 1.2 instead. Moving on to the end, instead of set damage cost over there, we're going to be doing set whirlwind damage cost. We are going to be multiplying this by 2, so we're going to take the current value of the cost and multiply it by 2, and all of your code should look like this. Now I know I did a lot of changing references, so what it might be worth doing is just pausing the video here to take a look at my code. For now, we're going to compile this, hit play, and we're going to test all of this to make sure it works. So having said that, we're going to run in and we are going to upgrade our whirlwind damage. As you can see here, it is not doing that, so let's go ahead and try that again. Possess, and then get enough of those fragments, and then go into here, press plus, and you can see at the minute it's not doing that. So let's go ahead and figure out why. All we're going to do is go through our logic, go to our graph, and just make sure all of these references are done. And as you can see here, we are setting leap damage the whole time. So whenever you're copying and pasting your code, you want to be sure that you are working with the correct set nodes. So instead of set leap damage here, we are also going to do set helicopter damage. So let's go and do that. And what it's going to do now is, instead of multiplying our leap damage, it's going to work with our helicopter damage instead. And that is all it's going to take. As third person character over here, set whirlwind damage. And then with this, we are going to be feeding in the information it's after, which is just down there. So as you can see here, copy this code, hit compile, and then hit play. And let's test this one last time, and it should be bug free. Press E, and if I increase my helicopter damage, that has gone up. If I increase my whirlwind damage, that has gone up as well. So that is everything that we wanted to upgrade for this shop menu. I hope you have enjoyed this little insight into how you can use variables and data to upgrade your abilities and affect the gameplay. That is everything for this video. So as such guys, thanks for watching, stay awesome, keep creating, your boy Veritas, signing out. This video was made possible by my supporters on Patreon. If you want more videos like this, check out my Patreon page using the link in the description. To stay up to date on new releases, make sure you follow us on social media.